Hey,
Happy
happy
Monday,
Monday,
guys.
everyone. We are officially in the second week of December. We are excited to be with you. My name is Janelle Villiers. That over there is Winston Broderick, and we are your hosts of another Monday episode of the Monday Rundown. I'm really excited because Mondays are always fun for me and Winston. We get to talk about all the things we don't normally talk about on our Wednesday shows. You guys are bringing us some great topics. And what we do is we look to other content creators, other thought leaders on the subject, so that way we can all grow and learn together. Let me just say this right now in case I forget. It is the season to give, right? And for free. You know what you can do? You can give the gift of subscribing, liking, and ringing that notification bell so that way you don't miss a new episode. But honestly, guys, what that does is just tells the algorithm that what we're talking about is super valuable and it will share it with more people. So that would mean the world to us if you did that. So
Say that, say that.
let's get into today's topic. What defines adulthood beyond age or milestone? What defines adulthood? Okay, so I have a funny story to tell. When I was a teenager, me and my best friends, our mothers were best friends, and they would call each other our mothers, and they would do things like get really excited because they were going to go shopping for curtains. And we, as teenagers, we were like, that is like the most boring thing ever. But we made this pact when we were 17 years old, 17 and 18, and we were like, okay, the day that you and I call each other to go shopping for curtains, that's how you know that we are officially adults. And I will say
That's pretty
when that
funny.
actually happened. We were in our 20s. Both of us had moved out of our homes. We had finished college. We were moving into our first apartment. So she had her first apartment. I had my first apartment. And we called each other and we were really excited about the curtains that we had
Oh, that's
gotten.
so fun.
And we just laughed and laughed and laughed because we were like, we're here now. We're here. We're adults now. And I think,
That's so interesting. I had an actual age as well. Oh, go ahead.
oh, an age. Well, we didn't have an age. It was more just a when we do this thing, no matter the age, when we do this particular thing, that is when
Milestone?
we,
Yeah.
yeah. You were gonna say though?
For me, it was 25. Yeah. For me, it was
Oh,
25. And I'll tell you why. 25 was the age that Enterprise Rental Car would let you rent a car on your own without someone older having to sign on for you. So I used to, when I first got out of college, I used to rent cars to drive back, stop putting the miles on my car or whatever. But I used to still have to have my mom, who shout outs to my mom, who didn't really drive at the time, come with me to the rental place. And the reason why it stood out so much is because she doesn't know how to drive. Their policy was the person whose name is on it has to drive it off the lot. So it was this thing with my mom to get her just to drive this car off the lot around the corner so that I could get in the car and drive home. It was almost always an ordeal with her. But I do remember specifically just that thinking, oh man, I can't wait till I'm 25 and I'm recognized as an adult. And I don't know if other companies had this policy or whatever, but I just recognized that Enterprise had some number set. And for whatever reason, for them, it was 25. So for me, 25 was the milestone I had that once I'm this, then I'm an adult. I've
well, to be
later,
fair,
later learned that's not the case. Just to get the cat out the bag. It's not the case. But go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I actually don't think that that's inaccurate because that
Oh,
25
okay,
is
okay, okay.
everywhere, all rental car
Oh,
companies, and um, that to me, I remember thinking about 25 being like that is the last age restrictor. Like after that, there's nothing else that gets restricted based on age
oh,
after that.
cool. Okay, okay.
And
Yeah. So then
I
it makes
did
sense.
I knew about that. I didn't have the same scenario where I was like actively renting cars,
Mhm.
but I just thought to myself that, oh, this is like the last age restrictor for me. And then I learned about
Oh,
genetic counseling, and then that was like a whole other thing. And then you start talking about advanced maternal age for motherhood, and then we're on a whole other side of the spectrum of what does it mean to be an adult.
ah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay.
So I think what's really interesting about what you just said, though, is ultimately all of these things, like whether it's this idea of what adults do, so adults do things like buy
Mm-hmm.
cars, or whether it's the last age restriction that you have to do whatever you want, essentially. no matter your age. It's this idea I think all of us have, like, oh, we've arrived at something. There's some level of things that
Yeah.
adults do, certain level of taking responsibility for things that I think you don't necessarily take responsibility for. Again, whether it's as something as silly as curtains or as serious as driving a car, right? Um,
Mhm.
I think there's a certain level of responsibility, a certain attitude towards your living, your dwelling, that I think switches or changes. That to me is typically the indication. But to your point, age isn't always the thing that, like, it's not like you turn a certain age and
Indicator.
you're enlightened.
Do you know why that's interesting? And I know we're going to jump into a video, but just to that point you brought up, I do remember thinking, like, even as somebody who lives at home now with my mom, my parents still, or back home with my parents, I do remember also thinking of, to that point, something like that, where when you moved out and had your own apartment, it meant you were an adult. And the idea of moving back home and living within your mom, your dad, your grandparents wasn't the idea of an adult. But what I've learned from not recently, but a little bit ago, was the idea that there are other family structures in other cultures that
Mm,
leaving and going outside of the home to go get your own place is completely against to how their family is set up. They're actually designed how I guess currently live, where there's 3 or even 4 generations in
mm,
a household, and it's completely normal to them. It's not viewed as, like, you aren't doing well, you're not adulting right. But I think in a Western society, it isn't viewed that way. I think it's like viewed as a step back if you need to depend on your parents. Or I know for a period after the whole when the pandemic was at the height, a lot of people moved back home, and it
mm,
wasn't viewed as well, actually it was being viewed as a positive things in the light of what was going on in the world.
mm,
And maybe that's why people got a pass, but I know in times past it would not have been. Somebody going, oh, I had to move back home, it just wouldn't have been viewed socially
mm,
as a positive thing. Well, I'll leave it
mhm.
there though.
True. I think that is a good observation or correct observation.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So we are not alone again. We are turning to one of our favorites. We are going back to the School of Life to hear what they have to say on the subject.
Say that. Take us to school, guys.
As we know only too well, becoming an adult has very little to do with turning 18 or 22, driving a car, or being entitled to drink. An adulthood worthy of the name is an internal process which may postdate the acquisition of a formal adult identity by many years. We might be 92 and still very slowly be leaving adolescence behind. If we live to be 450, many of us would still be struggling to acquire the fundamental constituents of a grown-up mind. There is one definition of adulthood that it is worth focusing on in particular. Adulthood as defined by the discipline of psychotherapy, which more than any other is devoted to working out a path from psychological infancy to maturity.
Hmm.
So here are 12 elements of an adult identity as seen through the lens of psychotherapy. 1. We understand at last some of the ways in which our childhoods have shaped who we are today. We're not confused by a question like, how did your relationship with your mother influence how you see women? Or how did your father shape your sense of what a man might be? 2. We give up on the temptations of believing that we might be simpler than we are. We stop saying that the past doesn't matter, that we can change whatever we like about ourselves simply by wanting to do so, that willpower is everything, and more modestly accept that we might need to explore our minds rather more deeply than would be convenient if we're going to be able to bring about the changes we seek. 3. We develop a sober appreciation of how easy it is to lie to ourselves. We have a sense of the massive hold of denial on our relationship to reality. We appreciate how easily we may get sad when we're in fact angry, anxious when there's a specific thing that concerns us, or stern and proud when we're warding off vulnerability. We get a measure of our powerful wish to evade ourselves. 4. We learn to tell others with slightly more accuracy what's really going on inside us. We don't expect to be understood without speaking. We learn to translate our paranoia and rage into something that someone else will be able to hear. We sulk a little less. 5. We understand, when we aren't tired, the difference between what someone meant to do to us and what we experienced at their hands. We realize that not every hurt we register was powered by a conscious desire to harm us. 6. We forgive ourselves for the strangeness of our minds. We learn to almost delight in how odd we are, what peculiar thoughts are constantly flitting through consciousness, the daunting surprises of our fantasies and dreams, and the perpetual ups and downs of mental life. We don't condemn this in ourselves or censor it too much in others. We take comfort from knowing that there is a strong difference between a thought and an action. 7. We are
Well, can we I want to jump in.
Yes.
As that man threw that woman over the ledge. Let's
And like
jump in.
the secret desires, and everybody was naked. Sorry.
Please
That was
drop
really
it in the comment, whichever one so far has jumped out at you guys. 'Cause that was really good so far.
For me, the my favorite is the it's easy to tell better what's happening inside of our minds. I've said this for a really long time. It takes a really adult or mature individual to be able to communicate, to be able to know the emotion you're having in the moment you're having it, and then be able to express what that emotion is to a person standing right in front of you who may be eliciting that emotion. So that one stood out to me.
I have to actually agree that there was that one for me also, just the idea of recognizing as I don't even want to use the word older, but just as I've matured, I feel I have a better grasp on my thoughts. Not that I always have thoughts I want, similar to to the guy throwing the woman over the ledge. But as I can have those thoughts, and actually, no, you know what? I'm gonna go with the last one then. So I'm gonna go actually with 6, because it is more that 5, yeah, but 6 for me, it is better. I can now have thoughts and be okay with some of the non-positive thoughts that I have, and be in a much better state about that. So yeah, it's throwing somebody off, but then going, it's just a thought, dude. It's okay. And all it is helping me have a better understanding, to your point now, of my emotional state, because I would have to be in a certain emotional state for that thought to come up. Yeah, so I'll leave it with that.
Very good. Let's continue.
We allow ourselves to get angry at certain things that might have happened around those who put us on the earth, but we don't stay stuck in a position of fury. We hold in mind an uncomfortable but genuine balance of ideas, that our progenitors were not necessarily bad, but that some genuinely difficult things might well have happened at their hands. 8. We accept that sometimes reality may be less awful than we assume it will be, because we appreciate how much of our difficult histories may be coloring the lenses through which we look at the world. We accept that catastrophes don't happen as often out there as they do in our minds. 9. We accept how many of our moods rely on the vagaries of our bodies. We get better at monitoring how much we sleep. We become passionate about early nights. We never try to have any significant conversations with anyone past 9 p.m. 10. We learn that we are not compelled to say everything that passes through our minds the moment it does so. We might register a wish to blow up a relationship and take up with someone new and hold the thought inside for now. We achieve a little more space between what we feel and what we need to do and say. We learn to move slowly. 11. We get patient and encouraging towards those who are less advanced than we are. We don't hold it against them that they haven't already figured everything out. We guess that there might be something more hopeful and tender lurking beneath their bad mood or anger. We remember how often people have cut us slack and cut them slack in turn. We know and get bored by how easy it is to condemn. 12. We remain aware that any progress we feel we've made is always liable to be temporary. We hold our victories lightly. A new storm may be along any moment. We're extremely grateful for every day that unfolds calmly. We lose our taste for excitement. We have nothing against the idea of having a delightfully boring rest of our lives.
Oh man, once again, the school of life. This is really awesome. I have to say, I really, the like, sometimes I feel bad about having like a totally fine day. I feel like that's what's been going through my mind, really. Like, actually, today was totally fine. It was great. And I don't want to be like, there was nothing to complain about, because no, it was more than just it was nothing to complain about. Like it was a good day. And sometimes I feel like weird for saying that or guilty. I don't know. But that's
Yeah.
that laugh
No,
made
no,
me
no.
like
You're,
think
yeah.
through that. Like, I don't, it's almost like it feel like I'm bragging. Like like I don't want
Yeah.
to brag that it was like a good day today. But also recognizing, I can probably brag more, because the truth is, like, I'm gonna have some really troubling days coming. Like that's what life does, right? Like
Yeah.
life keeps lifing. And so actually do brag about the fact that today was completely boring, productive, and you did what you needed to do. Like wonderful.
There's
Take,
a woman I listen to. Oh, go finish your thought.
what was it?
Oh, okay. There's a woman I listen to, and she often brings up the idea that as humans we like drama.
Mm,
And so we dramatize everything. Not everything, but we dramatize many things. And so
mm,
there's this idea, like you said, that when things are, if I'm gonna use it, just okay, if
mm,
that, or actually if they're better than okay, and not that, oh my God, I just want a ton of money, but if you just had a great day, I did this activity and it went well, I made it on time to all the things I was supposed to do.
mm,
It almost, to your point, I think it almost feels like you can't even enjoy or really celebrate something like that. And
mm,
it's for her advice is you absolutely should, because
mm,
it is the journey. We often say this, I'm sure it's something we've all heard, that it's the journey, it's the journey, it's the journey.
mm,
But it really is. The destinations, you've had a ton of destination moments, I'm sure, in your life. I've stood and watched you on stage talk to people, but those moments are just that. It's a moment. you know, it was a bunch of evenings in living rooms that weren't as glamorous that led to, or actually they were as glamorous as that moment on stage. And it's the recognition of, in the moment you realize that, man, this is going to lead to this and this and this and this. That
mm.
is the spice of life. So I love that. I love more boring days. Here's to more boring days, guys. Or
I'd also like
fulfilling
to
days.
just
They're not
mention,
even boring. They're actually very fulfilling. And I actually have to change that word, because there's nothing boring about it. They're great days. The sun came up. There were a lot going on. A lot of positive things happened.
right.
Yeah.
It was just undramatic. Maybe that.
And that's, yeah. And I'll share the audio with you, but well, I'll find it because she does bring it up in a few of them. But just
Mm,
this idea of, it's almost like you want the story. We want this thing. That, oh my God, I almost missed it. Or you'll make a statement like something was a bigger deal than it was. You know what I
mm,
mean? And
mm.
often I think we want to downplay things in life. When like stuff is going bad, you want to do the opposite. And all of a sudden you're like, I want the calm. Like I wanted to just be, whatever. I'm 5 minutes late to a meeting.
Regular day.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not that, oh,
yeah.
my mortgage isn't going to get paid, that blah, 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 blah.
Right,
So,
right, 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 right. I would just like to say the other thing I really appreciated was the sleep, recognizing that I think
yeah,
physical
yeah,
things like your how your body is also impacts how you are and how your emotions, to be quite honest. Um,
absolutely.
and I would like to say, as a woman who also is now better understanding my hormones, and that hormones actually do play a role in my emotional capacity. I think I'm
Hmm.
understanding how important sleep is, as well as just understanding like my own body and how hormonal cycles are real, and it's okay. Like I don't have to be beyond the hormones. It's not okay. Like it's totally fine.
Up
It's
to
like
you or something. Yeah.
yeah.
And to the men out there, let me not take anything away from what you just said, but who probably also deal with hormonal stuff, but it's not talked about, so we don't know how to answer people when things go on. I hear you. I'm here for you because I think that is a very real thing. Men must have hormones, and God knows it doesn't seem like it's often studied as to how ours play out or how it
No, but
affects
that's
us.
just it. It's been studied a lot, a
Oh,
lot.
has it? I don't know.
Yes,
Men hormones?
men, the way men, yeah, and then it's
I didn't
what's
know that.
said is that like, oh, women are atypical because like something's wrong with us. And like, because we don't react a certain way, that is typically the masculine way of dealing with emotions, or I shouldn't say emotions, but dealing with the reaction of hormones. And it's just, and so because of that, I feel like, anyway, male hormone levels have been studied more than women, and the way women have different degrees of hormones being expressed throughout their body is seen as abnormal.
Okay. Well, I did not know that, guys, so forget everything I just said.
The point is, everybody has emotions.
Well, the last one, but
yes, everybody has emotions. Everyone deals with them. And I think it's
yes.
true that your physical body, though, can have an impact on how you relate to emotions. That's all.
I like that.
Did I lose you?
Well, I enjoyed this episode. Let us know what you guys thought about it as well. No, you can hear me?
Okay, now I can hear you.
Okay, sorry about
that. All right, guys, this has been wonderful. Obviously, you can tell Winston and I can go back and forth about this for a very, very long time. Let us know in the comments what you think. We read all of the comments. We want to hear it. We want to get back to you. Create communication around this. No, dialogue. That's a tease because that's what we talked about last week. But we will see you next week. And until then, as always, remember that you deserve the good life. Say that.
Say that. We'll see you guys. Enjoy.